Something you might not know about me is I like cars. I am into cars. I like gas cars. I also like electric cars. I like electric cars more than gas cars, which is probably an unpopular opinion if you're into cars. But I like electric cars more than gas cars because I feel like they're better in pretty much every single aspect. The cabin gets more room because there's no engine. There's a lower center of gravity. Electric torque is instant. All-wheel drive is basically a standard on electric cars. And you can throw a lot of horsepower in a pretty small form factor. I prefer electric overall. Now, I still do like gas cars, okay? And gas cars do have advantages, like, for example, fueling up takes like 5 minutes tops. That is a huge plus. The range is also usually a little bit better. And I do like the feedback you get with a gas car. You don't get that with an electric car. It kind of sucks. I still do prefer the instant torque, though, of electric cars. That's just me, though. I understand why people prefer gas. Anyway, since I got that little thing out of the way, I want to talk about something today that I found kind of funny. Because as you all know, there's been a race to make electric cars recently, or you might not know because you don't care. Either way, companies have been racing to make electric cars in America because there's new regulations and stuff, and there has been an uptick in consumer demand. So lots of companies have been throwing their hat in the ring and making new electric cars. Like you have the Ford F-150 Lightning, the Ford Mach-E. Dodge is coming out with a Banshee EV, which is like the Hellcat, but electric. I'm actually really looking forward to that. It looks sick. But as of right now, lots of companies are trying to catch up to Tesla because Tesla is the #1 spot for EVs at the moment. As much as I don't like Elon Musk and I don't like recent Tesla decisions, they are still the #1 spot. Okay, they are still the most selling in terms of volume. And honestly, I think they nailed the drivetrains compared to other companies at the moment. Like the Model 3 Performance, even though the interior is kind of poo-poo, you still can't get that level of performance for the same price. And if you're the average consumer like me who just likes fast cars, you can't beat it. The suspension, though, definitely needs work if you want to actually track it. But like if you're buying a Model 3, you can probably afford like the 2K suspension upgrade to make it a much better ride for handling and for like bumps and everything like that. So I still think it's one of the best buys you can get for just pure performance, but obviously it's going to vary person to person. Anyways, with this race to make an EV happening, China is obviously going to jump in because China has been getting into the car market in general recently. They really have their own operations going in China as well. And from what I understand, a lot of those cars in China are just blatant knockoffs of stuff that comes from either Europe or America. Because guys, I don't know if you know this, but China is not the best at making original things. They kind of have gotten really good at copying everything other companies do because there's no like copyright protections like there are in Europe and the US, or at least in the same way. So they can kind of just steal everything that comes into a factory there. And they usually do that because like, look at this car. Does this not remind you of a German brand, you know, like Porsche or something like that, you know, maybe? Or maybe this one is a little bit like Volkswagen, you know, and then maybe this one's a little bit of a Honda. Wow, this looks just like a Honda, actually. Bro, even the minivan. Even the Dodge minivan, they stole it. So yeah, China's been making cars for a while, but none of them are really original cars. They're all modeled after cars that they just stole from. Let's be real. Even recently, I think there was a thing with Intel chips where a Chinese manufacturer just stole old Intel chips and marketed them as their own. I could be wrong on that. I'll check that in post and I'll put a little thing on the screen, but I think that happened. Anyways, a company in China has made an original car, at least from what I understand it's original, because you can buy it in the US, or at least you can reserve it because yeah, it's not going well with this car. Anyways, it's called the VinFast. That's the brand. And this is the VF8 electric crossover SUV. Personally, I don't like crossovers. I think they're the worst of both worlds. You get a tall riding car that doesn't drive like a car and it has way less use than a full-size SUV. I'm pretty American with that take though, probably. I understand why some people like them, especially if you don't care about driving, handling at all. But personally, I do not like crossovers. It seems like it's pretty decent on paper. Like, you know, 260 miles of range, just not the best thing in the world, but it's not terrible. 5 seconds 0 to 60, 87 kilowatt hour battery, which is like pretty good. 402 horsepower, that's also pretty good. The interior too is like pretty nice. It's not anything super weird, except I don't understand why there's buttons for every drive mode. That's kind of weird. I much prefer having like a dial or shift lever. I much prefer shift levers in general, or a shift column like the Teslas had. I do not like dials very much, but I much rather have a dial than buttons that you press to change gear. That's kind of weird. It also on paper has a pretty generous warranty, actually. 125,000 miles, 10 years is actually pretty insane. But like on paper, the VF8 VinFast is not a bad car. On paper. Okay, on paper. Because when this thing hit the market for reviewers, oh my God, the reviews are in and it is not good. So everyone mutually agrees this thing does not handle well. It is not a good handling car. Like, it was so bad that professional drivers that review cars for a living were getting motion sick driving this car. That is so bad. You know, sometimes someone's just a really aggressive driver and someone gets motion sick, especially in the back seats. But if the driver is getting motion sick, that is very bad, because the driver's the one interacting with the car. The driver's the one making the inputs. They know what's going to happen when they press things and move things around. They can predict it just subconsciously. But if professional drivers are getting motion sick, that is so bad. That is so bad. If they're getting motion sick while driving, especially, that is bad. They are used to driving cars. They are used to driving cars aggressively, and they're getting motion sick. And apparently when they put this thing in sport mode and they really hammered the throttle, the car would pull right on flat surfaces for like no reason. Like it's just, and they said right here too, the 5,600-pound SUV never stopped bobbing, swaying, bucking, and producing near constant head tossing motion. Riding the passenger seat, I became car sick for the first time in years. When I switched seats with the driver, he felt queasy too. And there's also just zero feel in the steering. It's just not a good car. And I just think it's kind of funny that like they make something original for once, like this country as a whole. I'm obviously generalizing, okay? And it's just not good at all. And it's like, guys, what were the years of stealing everyone's designs for? What were they for if you can't make something that's good? This thing also costs like $60,000+, so it is not a good buy regardless. If it was $20,000, maybe it would be like okay, because I think the batteries would be like worth that much money. But like as a car, no, dude, just get a BMW or something. If you're already in the market to spend this much money on a car, this would be the absolute worst thing you could buy for it with that money. And apparently it also limits horsepower until it's at 80% charge. So it only has 350 when the battery is under 80% charge. And from my understanding, this is the only company in the market to limit power this much. You automatically get limits on power with electric cars based on the battery percentage, just because the battery itself can't output as much power as it would when it has a higher state of charge. Anyways, this thing is goofy. This is a goofy car. I hope it gets good, okay? I'm not like preying on their downfall necessarily. I hope it gets good because competition is always a good thing, especially if they can compete in lower prices of cars in America. But like, it's just not that great. I mean, the interior's okay. Like this is an okay interior, but for like $70,000, it's like, oh, you gotta have good handling for that. And also like, I just wanna point out this touchscreen is an exact copy of the Tesla touchscreen. Exactly. The park thing at the top, the doors open when you open it. I think this is different. This charge indicator though, that's like exactly from Tesla. I think Tesla updated theirs recently, but this is what it used to look like. I'll put a picture on the screen. But yeah, guys, we're safe. Okay, China's not gonna steal the American market share. If you love American made cars, okay, they're not coming for your cars, at least for a while, because they are behind. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. Like and subscribe if you're new. And thank you for listening to me ramble about electric cars, especially the Chinese-made ones for a little bit. I find these interesting. I don't know how many of you do, but I hope you found my rambling interesting. Click the intro to check out more of my content and have a good one.